Be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to his disciples, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Live on in my love. You will live in my love if you keep my commandments, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and live in his love. All this I tell you, that my joy may be yours and your joy may be complete. This is my command: love one another. No one has greater love than this, than to lay down one life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I no longer call you slave, because a slave does not know what his master is about. Instead, I call you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father. It was not you who chose me, but I who chose you, and appointed you to go forth and bear fruit that will remain, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name will be given you. And this is my command, that you love one another." The Gospel of the Lord. Ever since Easter, our second reading has been from the first letter of John, which is about love, and where we get the Latin phrase ubi caritas, where there is love, there is God. Tonight's gospel is about love. But the challenge is, how do we take those existential statements and make them real? I was ordained in May of 1970, and I spent my first year at a parish way down in the diocese. There was a family in the parish, an Italian family, who had two sons who were at that time were seniors in college. They were both on football scholarships, big husky kids. And then years later, they had another child. Joey was about 3 years old when I went there. And I remember standing in front of church watching that family come in on Sunday mornings. And the two brothers in college would have Joey swinging between them. He'd be giggling, or he'd be up on the shoulders of one of them. He adored his older brothers, and likewise. When they'd get seated at Mass, Joey would sit on one of their laps rather than on his parents' lap. One August afternoon, one of those boys came home for lunch, and as he left and backed his truck out of the driveway, that little boy somehow ran behind the truck, and in one of those freakish accidents, in an instant, a life was gone. I was just a baby priest. When I got to that house, I didn't have a clue what to do. It was a big Italian family. The boy who had been driving that truck was inconsolable, just sitting there sobbing. And then more and more Italian family kept coming, and the place kept getting larger, and everyone was in a state of hysteria. And then I noticed it. It was that mother who was heartbroken, but was going around and comforting every single one of them. I remember her saying to the son who was driving that truck, "Don't you dare ever blame yourself for this. If anyone's to blame, it's me for not keeping a closer eye on him." A few years later, maybe 40 years ago, I had a wedding rehearsal one Friday evening. Seemed like a nice family. I didn't particularly know them. And around 10:30 the next morning, I got a telephone call at the rectory. The father of the bride had had a massive coronary and was dead. And when I got to the house, there was likewise the same degree of chaos and hysteria. And I have to tell you, as I stood here earlier today and watched the beautiful bride come down the aisle, and I do that every Saturday, I hadn't a clue what you women do to look that way until I got to that house that morning, and there was a woman there doing their hair. Everybody looked like a freak with what you do. I didn't know you women went through all that. But at any rate, everyone was sobbing and hysterical, and that mother said, "I want everyone in the kitchen right now." And she said to them, "I want you to listen to me. In 3 hours, we have a wedding. We're going to dance, we're going to rejoice, we're going to celebrate love between these two people. Tomorrow, we will deal with the funeral." And I got to the altar at Mass. She walked her daughter down the aisle. I don't think most of the congregation caught on what had happened. And ironically, that mother just 3 weeks before, had been diagnosed with a terminal cancer and decided not to tell her family, even her husband, until after the wedding. I buried her 7 months later. It has seemed to me, in my observation of dealing with you in moments of happiness and sadness, tragedy and joy and sorrow, it is the mother who is the fiber and the fabric that holds the whole thing together. It is the mother who epitomizes what all of these readings and this gospel are about when we speak of love. It is emptying oneself so that others might be. We pause this weekend to honor our mothers. Perhaps yours is gone, and that might elicit a tear. But remember that tears are the price we pay for love. If your mother is still with you, observe her and learn from her every single day what it really means to love. Amen.